Mambo Africa. Mambo Africa. Mambo Africa. Hey, Mambo Africa. Mambo Africa. Mambo Africa. Obrigado, obrigado, Africa. Obrigado, Africa. Wow, Kanimambo, Africa. Welcome, obrigado, welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited tonight just to come back to you. I hope and trust that you are doing well. For us, right here in KwaZulu-Natal, Sijabulile, that we are here tonight and we are excited. So, we have been having these summits and we've been having these discussions. And today we are at number 41 of our discussion, number 41 of our summits. And the discussions have been going on so well. We have had a number of speakers that have contributed. We have had a lot of people that have come on. And ladies and gentlemen, it's just an honor for us to begin to look at these issues in details. Once we are done, as I've said to you, that we have been able to knock at the doors of the African Union, we have been able to knock at the doors of Pan-African Parliament, and the reception has been overwhelming. And so we hope and pray that by the end of these discussions, once our compilations are done, we are going to submit serious documents to our leaders in the continent. Now, for those of you that are joining us from social media platform, Facebook and all that, allow me to bring to the fore that tonight I've got men and women who are going to join us, who are going to share with us some important things. We have talked about what Africa is all about. We have narrated a number of things, but last month was a Human Rights Month, and we spent most of our time to discuss on what ought to be done. So right away and straight away, allow me to bring in no other than Mr. Didier Kabwe, just to come and speak to us a little bit on the Human Rights Charter, as we have been looking at that before we go into the detail of our discussion tonight. Mr. Didier, all the way from UK, and welcome, sir. Go ahead tonight for the next few minutes.
Thank you, Doctor, for this opportunity. And let me seize this opportunity to greet all people who are going to intervene in this show. First of all, when we remember last time we spoke about the Organization of African Union, which the focus of Organization of African Union was to get rid of these vestige of colonization. But the African Union focused more on human rights. African Union focused on human rights, and we have to look back at the manifestation of the Pan-African vision for the United Africa. And we see that the focus is on human rights. They talk about equality, about freedom. So we see that when we look at the Charter of African Union, they focus more on human rights. But the question today is, are we really experimenting these content of the Human Rights Charter. So this will be probably the question, and we know that African Union also try to promote and understanding between African people, and of course they wanted also to put emphasis on fostering cooperation between countries. But on top of that, we see that human rights is the key of all meetings that we have at African Union level. Empowering women is one of the major objectives of African Union, but the road to achieving that is still long. But this can be achieved only by applying gender equality. And we know that all forms of violence against women are not allowed, must stop, and condemned by the society. So women have to be respected, and we have to respect women's choice in all key areas. And we have also to think about to reform the legislative. So we have challenges in order for us to see these human rights to be fulfilled. And these challenges needs to be analyzed and dealt as it's supposed to be. So, Doctor, I would prefer to stop for now here and wait for questions, probably also what my brothers are going to add on what we said.
Great. Thank you so very much for that introduction, just to inspire us on what exactly the African Union is looking at in order for us to bring this to reality. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, for those of you that are tuning in from social media platform, I want you to realize that the subject that we are looking at this week is building a new Africa by embracing human rights, youth, women participation in economic emancipation for a united Africa. I want to bring on Dr. Dennis Lembani, who is part of the HEIFA project right there in Zambia, and is also a scholar. He studied in a number of other universities and holds a PhD also in developmental studies. Dr. Dennis Lembani, I allow you and I bring you to the fore just to share with us what activities that you feel our women need to go on. What are the projects that we need women to begin to arise? If we are talking about Africa Arise, we need to realize that women plays a key role in development. We here in KwaZulu-Natal, we say, watinta bafazi watinte mbokodo, meaning that when you strike a woman, you strike the rock. So allow me to bring Dr. Dennis Lembani to speak to us in a minute or two, just to look at what are the key areas which we need to focus when we talk about women emancipation, specifically economically. Dr. Dennis.
Okay, thank you so much, Apostle, and also Dr. Nkoma, and good evening, everyone else. Well, as I've been introduced, my full names are Dr. Dennis Lembani. I'm a scholar and also coming from the development world, particularly in the NGO sector. Yeah, I've worked for a number of NGOs, starting from Action Aid International, HEIFA International, Plan International, among others. And also I happen to be, a founder of Community Aid Zambia, which is at the helm of, rural development. Yeah, thank you so much. From my perspective and also my engagement with the, the women in development. Yeah, it is always key and important, for Africa to really understand that without, a woman being at the center of development, then in Africa, still more, the future is quite, blink. It's not clear. Yeah, in the sense that, if you can understand and also see Africa as it is, particularly maybe when it comes to aspect of agricultural development, for example, livestock development, and also general livelihoods, a woman is always at the center stage. Yeah, every household, when you see it developing, more particularly in the rural setup, you would always see that a woman is always at the center stage. But there are so many factors that have, hindered a woman, from being, emancipated, from being freed, from being, at liberty, so that she takes a center stage completely in terms of development. Yeah, some of the factors that have led to that were also mentioned by the previous speaker. Yeah, that is Mr. Kabu here. Yeah, some of the factors, are, for example, gender inequality. Yeah, this is also coming from our background as Africans, where we stand so much on the patriarchal systems, where mainly a man has to lead. Yeah, so for so many years and also decades, around, you would find that a woman has been left behind at all costs, even in terms of development. Yeah, both politically, socially, and even economically, a woman has remained behind. That also has taken us to this level where Africa is now, where a woman still more is taken, to be a second-graded person in the world. Yeah, particularly in African setup. Yeah, but so for us to achieve, this, a woman to be well emancipated in Africa, we have to realize that, gender equity is always important. How do we ensure that, gender norms, gender values that are positive, that can contribute to development also, a woman, is embraced or embraced. Yeah, for example, in the development world, where I've always been in, I've always ensured, or we have always made sure that, in terms of screening or selection identification of project beneficiaries, yeah, we have always ensured that a woman is always at the center stage, must lead. Yeah, be it in leadership, be it in terms of engagement in development issues, a woman has always been taken not to be at the center stage. Yeah, because it's always believed that to empower a woman, you also empower the entire household. Yeah, some of the factors or maybe examples that I would put across are, for example, when you distribute resources to a household. For example, you would find that, a woman, is in charge of maybe livestock at the household level. In terms of production, in terms of crop production, agricultural production itself as well. If a woman takes a certain stage, you will find that, food and income security is always realized at household level. Well, because a woman would always think of how a family, how a household can also be developed, from the time one is engaged in development. That is the most important thing. So you would find that things would move because the woman is reading. And also by so doing, gender equality is always promoted. So from my perspective and also understanding, it is always key to understand that gender equality is always key at all cost in order to realize, women's participation, in the development sector, particularly economically. That is the most important thing. Yeah. So besides that also, for a woman to be at the center of development, it is always important also to see to it that, all these patriarchal factors are also broken. How do we do that? Yeah, because a man would always want to dominate. From the inception, from the time a man was created, a man has always wanted to dominate, wants dominion, meaning that a woman has to trail behind at all cost. So the most important thing is also the world, or Africa particularly, has to ensure that, we have to start breaking down all these factors that are leading, to a woman to be behind. Mainly they're patriarchal in nature. They're patriarchal in nature. Yeah, that is why as a result of that, we see all these, as a results impacting negatively on a woman. Some of these we find, gender-based violence. In fact, it is also called in some sectors sexual gender-based violence, because even a woman has got no right to make a decision to anything else, even in terms of development. Because a man has to lead, has to dominate. A woman has to hear a voice of a man. Yeah. So a woman, as a result of that, is not respected because cannot make a decision, cannot be engaged in decision making. A man has to lead. So this has spilled over even to aspects, of social economic development at all cost. A man has been dominating. So the most important thing, Africa to develop is to ensure that, we have to look at all these factors, influencing factors that are leading to gender inequality, also affecting a woman at all cost, because, we can see a woman is not at par with a man. Wow. And also some of the factors that we need to really think about are social cultural issues, traditional factors, all these are leading to a woman to be behind. Because every culture would always ensure that a woman, is trailing behind, is not taking a center stage in terms of development. So what I'm saying in short is that a woman is not emancipated. So for Africa to realize, to reach a level where a woman is emancipated, there are all these factors that we needed to look at more critically so that, gender equality is realized.
All right, Doc. Thank you so very much. We'll get to look into the details at a later stage. Specifically as we begin to look at what exactly we need to be doing and what are the conversations that we need to bring across to the women themselves. At this particular time, let me now bring a woman specifically now as one of our keynote speakers to give us a keynote address on some of the issues that they are dealing with. Now, I will be confessing of something. Dr. Manono is not in. He was supposed to be in, and he was going to confirm this because he's one of the people that does help me with the selection of our speakers. Now, allow me to introduce to us Sibongile Mwambazi. Okay. She is the founder of Transform Reform, which is an organization that helps young ladies discover their purpose and align to their destiny, whilst helping them overcome challenges and setbacks that life may have thrown at them, with a special emphasis and bias towards young individuals with missed identity. Now, as we are busy looking at that, allow me also to state that Sibongile Mwambazi is a cake artist. Now, I need to learn that. A cake for cakes, huh? A cake artist. Knowledgeable in sculpting and carving techniques. And she has a brand called Small Sensational Sweets. She's an entrepreneur, mentor, wife, and mother of 3. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, as I bring this woman to the fore, when we were doing selection of our speakers for this particular topic, her website popped in and we got through to her via the text message. In our discussion, I seem not to see her on. In our discussion, we got to discover that she made mention of her husband being her mentor, which was very strange. So on our side, we were thinking, how does a husband become a mentor? The other thing was that she bluffed us by, I'm using what we call vernacular. The word bluffed is not an English word, but it's a vernacular word right here in KwaZulu-Natal. Because her name says Sibongile Mwambazi. So I picked up the call and I was speaking to Dr. Manona. I said, oh, there is this lady from South Africa and we need to bring up, because she's got this organization called Transform Reform. But now when she mentioned the name of her husband, to say her husband was Reverend Walter Mwambazi, I was now, because Walter is my friend from Zambia and this lady is from, so I got confused and mixed up. But then by the end of the day, I discovered that they ran two different entities. And ladies and gentlemen, they happen to be in one room today. We will ask them a lot of questions. And but ladies go first. So Sibongile ngiyabonga kakhulu ukuthi wena uyafika la ekhaya. I'm saying thank you very much for those of you that are watching for coming home here at the African Institute of Leadership and Governance. But there is just one problem there, because on her bio it's saying she has 3 children. And we at the African Institute of Leadership and Governance, we believe in numbers because numbers count. So 3 is not enough. Hand over to you, Sibongile. Can you talk to her?
Nyabonga kakhulu, Sanbonani.
Yeah.
Sanbonani, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity. As the Lord leads, we might add on some. So, like you've introduced me, my name is Sibongile Ziwa Mwambazi. So, growing up, I grew up without my parents because my parents died when I was pretty young. So growing up without parents, because, you know, identity, what I can say is that most of our identities are shaped around our background and culture. And parents are the ones who help in shaping an identity of a child because they're able to pick certain things about that child, interests, and you help them, you can help them build into a strong identity for them to thrive in the future. For me, it was a different case because my parents died when I was pretty young, so I virtually had nobody I could look up to as a role model. All I had was just the values that mom instilled in us as her children. That's all I had, and that God was the center of everything. So that's what I picked from my parents because they were taken when I was pretty young. So in that moment, I just lived life the way life, I had nobody to look up to. I didn't have a role model, but it took me to come to a point of a realization. And that's when I took on the journey of self-discovery, because I had to come to that point of realization. So that's when I went through that process of self-discovery, that's when I knew who I was. Because most people, they don't know. If you describe someone like, who are you? They feel an identity is tied to a role, which most people think just because you're this, that is your identity. That is not your identity. That's just a role that you are saving in a particular time of your life. So when I went through that process of discovering who I was, because I remember I did kind of a lot of courses because I was defined by my environment and society. I had no idea of what I was all about, because most of us, we grow up in this setup where society is the one, the society dictates to you how you're supposed to live your life, which job you're supposed to do, and especially for women, when you need to get married. So I was in that kind of setup. So I wasted so much time trying to do this course, it didn't work. I did this, it didn't work, until I got to my realization, which came by a revelation, because they say transformation comes with revelation. For you to have a realization, there should be transformation that you want to embark on, and that's through a revelation. And that's when Transform Reform was born. That's when I thought of now trying to reach out to young people and individuals who may have a misidentity because of whatever they've gone through in life. They don't know how they can connect themselves to becoming the person that they're supposed to be. That's when Transform Reform was born, because it's centered about all around bringing awareness around yourself, around your identity, because I help people connect them to their selves and bringing awareness around their identity, confidence, life goals, and core values. That's how, and from there, that's when I realized my passion for baking. You know, I did countless things. And it was in that moment of my self-discovery that I realized that I actually had a passion for food, cooking and baking. And I just decided to get necessary skill, expertise, and just run with my passion. And I'm operating in my domain, because there's no, you need to have a purpose in life. You just don't have to exist. Every one of us, God has put something in us. And once you realize what your purpose is, life gets better. So coming to the women emancipation, I believe traditionally, men have always been the sole providers. They're the ones they're the ones who are supposed to provide for the family. Hence, women in some areas are being marginalized, because that's how it's always been, that a man should be a provider. Yes, he is. But currently, or should I say recently, men are not really being the providers they ought to be. They are not taking up their role of providing for their families. And women have risen up to that challenge to tend for the family needs, because men, he will come to that part, because that is what is happening. To some extent, for the woman, it's good. It's a good part, because now women are rising to that challenge and are being empowered, which is a good thing. And in my opinion, I love the fact that women are being liberated, and they are not being marginalized as it was, that they can now take part in governance and policy making, which is a good thing. Though I really feel this emancipation hasn't reached where it's supposed to be, because there are certain places and there are certain nations around the world where women are still not being recognized, that women can take up certain roles in governance and policy making and decisions. So that fight, it's almost getting there, but we need to do more of this sensitization and helping women to discover who they are, because when they have an identity, they discover who they are, it's easy for them to share their passions and know what they're supposed to do. So let me leave it over to Rev. I've spoken too much.
Not really. I mean, we're still going. But just adding to what Cyril has just said.
All right. I hope that we managed to get them. I hope that we will manage to get them back online quickly. All right. Those of you that are tuning in today, we are looking at a very great subject with great leaders that are joining us, and we are looking at very important subject. We are looking at how can we bring this to reality if Africa has to rise, if Africa has to get to another level. Maybe because I've seen that the network seems to be failing. I'm not sure if Miss Okay, I'm not sure if Miss Manana, you are there. I would want to hear from you if you can switch on your mic quickly, Miss Manana, and your camera. If you can come on and share with us in your understanding, what is it that Africans need to be doing? What is it that we, the African people, need to be conversating on? Kele, if you are on quickly, can you get on the mic and just share with us in 2 minutes what you feel African leaders ought to do in order to empower this girl child that we speak about? We're talking about human rights. So can you come on camera so that you are on? Yes. Go ahead in 2 minutes as we wait for our other guest.
All right. Hi, everyone. In my own opinion, I believe that we've seen quite a number of initiatives, which are supporting women, in power, like different kind of fundings and everything. But I believe that there are key components that have been missed in the process, because I'm gonna go back to the last speaker's note, where she mentioned us knowing our purpose. So we're actually having this opportunity of having different kinds of funding for women, but I do not see a similar amount of initiatives where women are now being given the opportunity to actually get mentored, given so much information in terms of like guidance, for example, courses where they can get to know better about managing and being in power and leadership and things like that. So I tend to believe that at this point we are getting we as women we are getting opportunities out there compared to before. And yes, more can be bettered with that regard, but that portion of opportunities opening has already been made available, but we do not know how to handle it. We do not know what to do with it. We are not empowered enough with information, with education of that self awareness, and to be rooted to our purpose as women, and knowing that it is not wrong, and it's not against the law, and it's not it's not against the culture to actually be empowered as women. So from my point, from my own point of view, yes, we are getting those opportunities and bits and pieces, but we are losing track, or we are lost in what exactly do we do about them? How do we approach them? We are scared to sometimes reach out to our partners. The previous speaker was blessed enough to actually list her mentor, to list her husband as a mentor. To be quite honest, that doesn't happen much, because we are actually afraid to reach out to our partners, because at times you feel that maybe you're overpowering him, or he will feel so. So and it's not because they make us to feel like that, but because of the norm, because of the culture and other factors, we tend to hold back, or we tend to take a back seat, and we tend to believe that, oh no, I'm a woman, he's gonna think that I wanna run the show, I'm gonna probably do the same thing in the house. So yes, we just need a bit of self assertiveness,
Great.
more understanding, more information, more training on how exactly do we tap into this mode of being a woman in leadership and a woman in power. So that's basically
All right.
from my
Yeah.
end.
Hang in there. We will get back to you so that you can be able to. We will look at. I've got Dr. Dennis here. I've got Mr. Didier here. We are academics here. We are going to look at areas that we need to empower women. And I'm glad because you are an accountant, and at the same time, you are also into IT. So, and these are areas where we really need women to get on. Okay, I see. All right, Reverend Walter Mwambazi is on, and can you hear me? All right, it seems they are not able to hear us. Reverend Mwambazi, can you hear me? I'm not sure if, can you hear me? Reverend Water, can you hear me? Their network seems to be really bad on their side, and we are trying everything to connect their network. But whilst we are waiting to get them on, and it looks a bit better now. Reverend Water, can you hear me? All right, I'm not sure. Their network seems to be quite bad. In the private chat there, let me just type something to them. Rave, can you hear me? It seems that I'm not sure if it seems they are not able to hear us. Okay, let's get on quickly. Wow, the network, it seems to be terrible that side.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, yeah, perfect. If you can hear me now, that's great. And mute your mic. You are on the floor, and your wife was alluding to you as a mentor, and I saw you jumped in quickly before I introduced you. Now, allow me to do a formal introduction, then I give you to deliver also to us as we look at this great subject today on how do we look at youth emancipation, women emancipation. How do we make sure that the resources of our continent are evenly distributed in all angles that we are talking about? Allow me today to introduce to us Reverend Walter Mwambazi, a thoughtful transformational leader, a networker, digital and traditional marketer, published author, copywriter, columnist, and blogger. Oh, the other one is too complicated for me. It says neuro-linguistic, okay, I don't know what's that, and cognitive enhancement coach, radio and television personality, social influencer, and a TEDx speaker. One of the things that Reverend Walter has done, he has authored a book on the 5 reasons why Africa is poor. Now, Reverend Walter, I'm sure you are able to hear us that side. I would love that you pick it up from there. We first look at your book, Why Africa is Poor. Then we want to look at the women themselves. All right. Okay. It seems their network is really troubling. Now, since their network is troubling and my other moderators are not here, so let's do this and let's open up the floor and we begin to look at why Africa is poor. Let's look at from the cultural perspective. Let's look at the hindrances to this women emancipation, so that once we are looking at this, when they come on, they pick it up from there. Allow me to bring in once again Mr. Didier from the School of Politics. I know that politics plays a very vital role. And maybe you can share from that. Why are we so stuck? Let's look at the cultural perspective. Let's look at the women empowerment that we have talked about. Then we pick it up from there. Go ahead, Mr. Didier, quickly.
Thank you, Doctor. One of the problems that we have in our society is this stigma, the attitude that we have. We look at a woman as inferior to the man, and we look at women as unequal to a man, which in the potentiality that is in her to express herself. So for me, the first obstacle is this stigma that we have in our society. But when we look at the situation compared to previous years, we can see that there is improvement in terms of the number, for instance, of the rate that we have in terms of the participation or emancipation of the women. Today we have women president in Africa, in Tanzania. So these are the achievements, although we are not yet at the level that we would like to be, but we can see that there is improvement. But the most problem is the way we see women in men. So we need to shift this attitude if we want to see Africa in another dimension. So this is a problem that we still have to answer.
Let me check that.
Yes, we will pause there, and let me allow Reverend Water to come in immediately, as their network seems to really be unstable on their side. I hope that this time their network is going to be fair on their side. Reverend Water, are you able to come on right away?
Okay. Speak.
Reverend Water,
Oh.
can you come in? Yes.
So,
it's your time.
yes.
We are looking at
yes.
the 5
Sorry
reasons
about that. We had to
on your
switch
book,
providers.
on your book. We are on your book. We
Oh,
are
okay,
on your
great.
book. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Okay, first, great. So let me first begin by kind of backing up what my wife said very, very quickly, and then tie it into the book and what is in the content of the book. I definitely agree with everything she said. One of the biggest challenges I'm sure you already admit we face is that we are seeing a situation where there's been the marginalization for women for a long time. And there's a lot of effort through the works of people like Dr. Lembani and everybody else on the platform to see that women are, empowered, women are brought into the fold. The irony is that for the longest of times, women have been an economic engine on this continent, but marginalized and put to the back. The sad thing, though, is that with the further generations that are coming, I was doing a study this morning on the generations. I mean, we belong to Generation X. And what we noticed is that basically the millennial generation, that's Generation Y, which they call the millennials, that's 1980 to 1996. That generation, to 1996, I think, if I'm not wrong, I need to double check. That generation is in a crisis because of how they have not been able to see the right modeling when it comes to men and women interacting correctly. My wife raised a very critical issue on the point of roles. I think even when you look at my generation, I think there was a role crisis as well. Instead of people identifying who they are in their true sense, they were playing roles. And so because of that, they never achieved purpose and they went about doing everything the wrong way. And so there's a new generation that has come, and that generation, A, doesn't have the right male models on average. And we have to speak average here. We're not talking about, outstanding individuals. There's always exceptions to the rule. But on average, there are no good role models. for men. A lot of women have had to be strong and stand on behalf of their families. And what this has done is it has raised what I believe is a misidentified individual in the next generation, Generation Z. Generation Z are suffering a serious identity crisis. And the women, it doesn't matter, even with the women as well. Everybody has some kind of identity crisis. And perhaps time won't allow us to go deep into it. But when you look at the book, The 5 Major Reasons Africa is Poor, I am addressing two major concerns. It may not be so clearly said in the book, but this is part of the mission that actually ties us up together. And those two missions are, number one, misidentity, and number two, miseducation. And when we talk about identity, let me zone in a little bit and kind of show how it ties to women emancipation. There are essentially two components that form personality, or identity, very powerfully. The first, of course, is your name. We're not going to talk much about names here because I think that's straightforward right now. But the second one, which is critical, is culture. And yes, and when it comes to culture, you have to realize that there are essentially a number of things that form the personalities of individuals who grow in that cultural background. The first is obviously the models, and for me, that's where I really kind of want to zone in. The models. What kind of role models are we having today when it comes to the men? I'm not talking about the women. I think the women, to be honest, have been the best role models they could be under the circumstances. Considering especially my generation and the generation before me, which I think are the baby boomers, if I'm not wrong, that generation, there's been a great crisis when it comes to the role models of men. But it has gotten worse with Generation X, because Generation X suffered, I think they suffered from issues of trying to amalgamate the switch of culture from our traditional community-based raising of families to the modern post-colonial town-based, urban-based life, where that core structure that determined the real heart of raising and bringing values in children disappeared completely. You know what I'm talking about. You're talking about the rural-urban, drift, the buildup of shanty compounds, the pressure of urbanization and its industrial pressure for work, the assigning of women to domestic works and workers based on industry, as well as the men. And this broke the fabric of what was protecting and raising children with the right modeling. So generation millennial, the millenniums come in and they have working parents. They have no real models to guide them on what forms good core values, what forms good ethics, what forms character. These are core factors within the personality as a result of the culture that forms an identity. These are lost. So you know that today we have a crisis. Yes, we are fighting to get the girl child empowered, but we are dealing with a generation where the boy child is now lost. The men are not being the models they should be. The culture is a mishmash. And the other day I was talking with Madam Mulenga Kapope about this at length. We are calling it an amorphization of values mixed all over the place. The TVs they watch, the social media they interact on. It's formed an amorphing of values, and now we don't really have any proper structure. And for me, I actually see a crisis coming. So for example, my wife and her ability to identify who she really is partly based on being able to find herself around a solid structure once more with proper values, models that could then be followed through. And that's what we would like to see going on. So when we talk about misidentity, we believe that the biggest challenge that is facing the African today, woman or man, especially man, and that's why they're not really playing their role right, is this mix of values because of the loss of culture due to the mix between the modern, postmodern existing and that traditional African setup, which was around small communities and the village setting. So the extended family is gone. It's really about people working on their own. I'm sure you'll agree with me, even over there in South Africa. We are seeing a completely new kind of reality. And if we go further down into the lower classes, it gets progressively worse because kids don't have their parents around. So they are hanging around school, and after school, they're in the street corners, they're playing around. So they're being raised by that setting. And it's just not conducive to creating the right kind of individuals as adults. So we are seeing a coming crisis when it comes to all these things. So even as girls are being empowered, there is the issue of the stability of the family. And for me, that's going to play a massive role. So the second area is miseducation, but I don't want to really go into it because I think I'm going to drift the subject a bit off. So I'd rather stick with just this first one, which is culture. So what does culture contain? 4 key things, which, sorry, not culture, sorry, what does culture contain? 4 key things. Number 1, it contains the role models. Number 2, it contains the ethics and values. Number 3, it contains the behavioral modeling. And number 4, it actually brings about beliefs that are centered or founded upon these. And if these things are messed with, which is what we're seeing now, we definitely are going to continue to see a crisis in a different angle. But without really drifting off track, that for me is the angle I see. And that's why when I wrote my book, of course, I went deeply into other aspects. But generally speaking, in relation to our topic today, this is what the identity issue is. And the emancipation of the women has to be carried with a certain level of caution and trepidation, even as we grow.
All right. Thank you so very much, Reverend Walter. We are going to go now into an open forum discussion right away. And I would want to hear contributions from everybody. So I'll ask those that are can, because when you are coming on the floor, your camera must be on. Remember that we are looking at the subject, building a new Africa by embracing human rights, youth and women emancipation in economic, women participation in economic emancipation. Dr. Lembani, on Heifer project, I wanted us to hear maybe 2 projects that you really target on equipping the youths and equipping the youths and the women. Then I know that Nkele spoke about a lot of funding that we usually have. I see Mr. Simon Sikanyika is there. I saw Yotam was also here. I want you to come in. Then also remember there is an aspect we are dealing with here. Human rights, where we look at equity, where resources have to be evenly distributed. Now, if we have to see women participate in issues of economy, women participation in issues of governance, anyway, Mr. Didier will understand. He will forgive me because I'm a politician sometimes. And the only place where we see women participation or women emancipation is during the campaign. I can testify on that everywhere where I'm campaigning, I have more women than men dancing. But I want to bring this for those of you that are watching. In fact, we'll be coming to Zambia. I think there is Africa Arise and Africa Must Prosper conference or summit that is being scheduled in the month of August. And I've got my good friend Nelson Chamisa coming, my good friend Kelvin Waliafume, popularly known as KBF in Zambia. And we are putting these things together with a number of leaders across the country. Dr. Berlin Chitsunge, the first woman in Africa, who was mentored by Nelson Mandela himself, and the first woman to be recognized worldly by the World food, whatever, World Food Program or organization under the UN as the commercial farmer globally, the first woman from the soil of Africa. She's one of our colleagues. There is a poster out there, and we are preparing ourselves to have this conference. And because we want to make sure that women, they really emancipate. Now, it's also questions that I would give to those of you that are out there. To me, from the political seat where I sit, it's been a challenge. I look at our history. Culturally, we have a challenge where we have believed that women are only good at dancing. Women are only good dancing for us during the campaign. But when it is time to put cabinet in place, I have seen we don't put 50% of our women in cabinet. We have seen women take the least positions. Now, if we are looking at empowering our women, empowering our youths, and we want to see our continent be governed well, where do we start from? What is the starting point? Dr. Lembani, maybe you can chip in there quickly and give us a bit of a clue on how HEIFA and the projects that you are doing, the target in terms of empowering the women and the youths, and then we open it up to everybody that is on the platform tonight. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you so very much, Dr. Nkoma. Well, I've done a number of projects in relation to economic women empowerment and also with an inclusion of the youths. Yeah, some of them I've done particularly with my organization. It was a project called Enhanced Livestock Trade and Enterprise, of which the target was mainly, the women folk and also the youths. The identification completely focused on that. Yes, because the primary purpose of the project was to see, for us to ensure that, a woman is economically empowered. Yeah, so that also at household level, there is food and also income security. And also as a result of that, we ensured that, a youth was supposed to be part of the same, of which we ensured that the youth was included in terms of identification selection. Yeah, so every household was given, some livestock so that, they could be involved in production. Yes, after production, they were also linked to the market.
Wow.
Yes, because in most cases in the Zambian setup, especially in eastern part of Zambia, you would find that, people are more into, production only. Yes, and in most cases, it was just ending at production. So the issue behind was after production, so what? Yeah, so deliberately we said, let's include the aspect of entrepreneurship. A household must be linked to the market. Yes, after the market, meaning that the household is able to realize income and food security at household level, because income will be at household level. Thereby, it will also increase also the standard of living at household level. Meaning that a woman generally also that will be empowered economically and also socially will also be empowered. There will be high self-esteem. Low self-esteem will improve. A woman will be able to be engaged. A woman will be able also to have a voice because, economically is empowered. Yes, but how did we ensure also that, a woman can have a voice? We ensured that, trainings such as social development were also included. How do we ensure that a woman also takes a center stage in terms of, policy formulation, aspects of leadership, engagement of influencing also the duty bearers, the policymakers themselves, whensoever it came to trade, whensoever it came to entrepreneurship, whensoever it came to production, whensoever it came to management of the pressed resources at household level. So it was the same actually with the youth, because you must be aware that in the African setup, a youth is always, sidelined, isolated at some point, unless, there's a crisis, in the community. For example, maybe there's a demise of somebody, a youth is engaged. just forever. Yes, but when it comes to issues of social and economic development, a youth is not included. So most of the projects that I've been involved in, which involve more to do with economic empowerment, a youth is always, part of the projects. Yes, because mainly a youth is left behind. It simply shows that, a future would be, would be at the brink. Because the youth, there is always a saying that the youth is a future leader. But we are saying, how do we ensure that the youth is a future leader? Apart from engaging the youth, from the onset of economic, empowerment projects. That's the most important thing, which is always cardinal to ensure that, emancipation also takes place. Inclusion of all the targets, mainly the youth as well as also the women, must take a center stage and be engaged also in social development. Other than that,
yes, no, I will stop you there. Just hold your thought because we are still coming. We've got a few minutes. So there are a number of issues that you have addressed here. You have spoken about income security for the women, making sure that our women attain income security. We have also talked about inclusiveness, both in policy making and also in economic participation. You have also spoken about training. You have also spoken about linking the community or the household to the marketplace. And I think these are factors where we have seen many of our people failing. Before we go on, I want us to look at beyond this, the cultural perspective. I've been battling, where I sit this side, I battle with a lot of things because I am meeting a lot of young ladies and women who economically, their focus has been the man should provide. I should be in the kitchen. Culturally, we were taught that. And if we have to build a new Africa that will bring equal distribution of resources, we need to deal with these kind of cultures. But anyway, let me allow Nkele, I see your camera is on quickly, chip in there, and the rest of us, we begin to chip in and we look at that from the cultural perspective, because we are talking about human rights here. Remember, when our women want to go into certain spheres of career or practice, culture lifts up a red flag. The culture does lift up a red flag. And it says, oh, hell no. Hell no. This no woman. Right now, even in religion sectors, those that come from the religious circles, we know that religion has played a very big role in marginalization of such. So Nkele, maybe chip in a minute or so, then everybody else, we begin to look at the detail, then we'll be wrapping up quickly.
All right. I'm glad you mentioned the religious part of it because it was the first thing I actually thought of while I was listening to all the other key speakers today. Women need to know or need to have that mentality that or be empowered to a point where they're in a level of understanding that they are allowed to lead, not just at in your work environment, not just like at home, also at church. You are also ordained by God. You are given that platform by God himself to actually lead as a woman. So coming back to our cultural perceptions as well, you see a lot of women being used to that oppression, that you find this very powerful woman of God out there who's like praying for a mfundisi because she wants to be a mamfundisi, but who says she needs to be a mamfundisi only when she can marry a mfundisi, maybe she can just be a Mfundisi and lead and take over, and then God will bless her with a Mfundisi or with a partner or a missing rib at some point in her life, and then get that, get to actually groom him or get him to go through the similar processes in order for him to share their spiritual journey. So this is one of the factors which we are looking at, and these are this is part of the issues or the imbalances we actually are experiencing, and because we actually lack the understanding that we are, as well as women, allowed and should actually take charge, but we lack the resources and information and understanding of how to go about it, and we assume because of a number of cultural well, clauses that no, if I do this, then it's, they're gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm a woman. It's not allowed. It's not supported. Who will support me? We want to have a following. But if we take charge in those cases, we actually would achieve as much as like males would or men would. So yeah.
Okay, let's open it up to an open discussion tonight. I know that Sis Wongile there, she has not spoken for a while. Mr. Didier has not spoken there. We want to begin to wrap up with a summary and conclusion to say, what are we going home with tonight? Let me look at somebody has said, I hope we can all see that. I hope we can see that. Epedius, Prince Epedius says, equal rights should be promoted where women are allowed to participate in economic, social, and political life without being discriminated, because most of the time women go through a lot of discrimination whenever they try to fully participate in these areas. Okay. Another comment there from Namalambo Hamalala saying the role, says next topic, the role of male leader figure in a deliberate move to involve women participation in leadership and empowerment. Wow, interesting. Yeah, so there's quite a number of other conversations that we might have on that. Let me hear from Madam Smongile and maybe Reverend Water there and anybody else who can come in as we deal with this issue. Go ahead.
Okay, so I would just like to add on what Nkele had previously mentioned. Like, our tradition and our cultural beliefs have really messed up most women. Yeah. They've messed up so much that women feel their place is only in the kitchen and nurturing of the children and taking care of the family. So in my opinion, I think we need to have a lot of these programs where we mentor women and sensitize them on the importance of them knowing their place in society, them stepping up to the challenge and knowing that it's not all about them just being there in the home, that they also have a role to play in matters of governance, and also they have to take up that challenge. But this has to do with an overhaul mindset change, because already the way we have been, because of these beliefs and cultural backgrounds that we've been raised in, it's become a mindset. So we need to start sensitizing the women and helping them break that mindset, to them to start thinking in a certain way that you can also participate in national interest, that you can also become a person that is not just going to be dependent on the male figure. Yeah,
absolutely.
So,
I mean, just adding to that, and so to kind of like pick up just from the mindset she speaks about, I think there are 5 areas I would want to zero in real quick. 4, I think 4, not 5. I'm not sure. But the first one, no, 4. The first one is we must take responsibility, which I think we're doing quite well, even though there's still a lot of work. The cultural beliefs are still very, very strong, and they do have a very heavy overbearing effect on the overall emancipation of women. But the second one is that the women must get to a point, and this is what, as Nkele was speaking earlier on, as Doc was speaking, we were talking amongst ourselves between the two of us, and we're saying mindset, which is what number 2 is. Number 2 is raising a standard. For as long as the people, after taking responsibility, for as long as the people do not realize that they can actually live a better standard, we're not going to see any transformation. We're not going to see any change. So there has to be this self-realization she mentioned of earlier, where you say, this standard we're at now is unacceptable.
Mhm.
And once we get to that place where we choose no longer to be confined to a certain mediocre standard, and we choose a higher standard, then we really are going to see a drastic and more deliberate move towards changing that. But that starts with the individuals accepting that they need to change their standards or raise their standard. And then the third one is to change the beliefs. And I think that's the biggest, most challenging component, changing the beliefs. How do we change those? And that's where even religion comes in, because religion also plays a very big role in shaping the overall cultural overtones of a given society, and therefore the thinking that's prevalent in that given community. So the beliefs have to be challenged, and they must be changed. So if there are self-limiting beliefs, which you know there are many, those need to change. I think we're just earlier on, there was that thing tackling about the provision. You talked about it, Dr. Nkoma, there. You were saying that this thing about provision, should it always be the case that men should provide? Well, of course not. But should it be now that men should be couch potatoes and women go and fend for things? Absolutely not. So there has to be a balance. So we need to find that fine sweet spot in the middle that will cater for that. But beliefs are big. And lastly, we need to also change the strategy. I mean, that song at the beginning of the show, talks about Africa. I loved it. I was like, oh, that's an interesting song. Now, in that song, they were talking about the Julius Nyereres and the Kaundas of this world, and the Mandelas, and all our former forefathers of the African Union. But the shocking thing, Apostle, is that 59 years later, we're still in the same boat. So meaning there must be something fundamentally flawed that we're not doing right. And this thing now goes right beyond the women to just the whole Africa itself. There must be a change of strategy. I think we've been singing some of these songs for the last 15, 20 years. We're not seeing any change on leadership. And one of the comments there spoke about the role of the male leader in emancipating women. I think that's a big issue. And Doc, you mentioned also that you see women at campaigns, but you don't see women in decision-making places after people win. I mean, look at our current situation here in Zambia. The new party has taken over, and I'm counting the number of positions that women hold in government. It's not nice. So
what is it? What is it? Well, it's not nice. Where is it at? Where is it sitting? Hello? All right. I think we have lost we have lost Reverend Water there. Mr. Didier, can you chip in there? He was speaking at a very critical and political, and I was going to come on strong there. But he was he was chipping in on political situations where women are sidelined. And okay, he's back. Reverend Water, are you back?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was just saying.
You were saying something very critical. You were saying something very critical. You were saying in Zambia, the current government has taken over from the old government, right? Am I correct? Or the current regime?
Yes,
Rather, let's use that word.
But we've not seen. Yes, but
you say
yes, but we've not seen the women being in. Yes, the women are not. The numbers are not too encouraging. I think even the percentages.
Statistically, Here we've got Mr. Didier Kabwe here, who is a senior leader in the political spheres here, political science scholars. We want statistics and figures. What's the percentage in the cabinet? What's the percentage of the, yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure about the percentage. As Reverend Walter said, the number is not so encouraging so far, but we have seen here and there, as I was saying, that at least today we have an African and woman president in a country in Africa. So it is something which is encouraging. But when we look at the number of women in official position, so it's still low, and we look forward to see that number increasing. As I was saying, one of the key aspects in seeing the emancipation of women is unless if we achieve gender equality, then we will see this number of women in official position increasing. What is the problem now? The achievement of gender equality still a challenge. So as I like what Mrs. Sibongile, I think, was saying, the economic situation today allows that a woman must also provide, because the man is not able himself to provide. So we see that the women are coming on board, and things are going forward and things are changing. Probably in a few years, we're going to see the number increasing.
Wow. Yeah. I think we are at that. I think we are at that where, but also let me state this. I think from where I come from, where I stand from, I think the main issue which you ladies out there, you have to work on is the low self-esteem. Women, when it comes to key positions and when it comes to even careers and professions, we have seen many women shy away from such. And that gives room to some of the men who have got a dominancy tendency to prevail over women. And so we see that. I was asking myself, Reverend Walter, what I know Dr. Kenneth Kaunda is our celebrity and a great hero in Africa. And here at the African Institute of Leadership and Governance, we hold him in high esteem. The other day when I was preparing this discussion, I was looking at the number of women in his cabinet. I found that the number was 0. And I was looking at the first cabinet of Kenya. The number of women there, I think it was only 1 or 2. I look at Tanzania, of course, we've got a woman who has taken over after the death of a great leader. This is the president who we all in Africa loved so much. And after he passed on, and we see that. I'm not sure, Mr. Didier, you could remind me how many ladies were in the cabinet of Mobutu at the time of the Congo, when of independence. How many women were in the cabinet of Mobutu? Were there women?
Even if there were women, it's probably 1 or 2.
Maybe 1 or 2
out of 66 ministers.
So now, Reverend Walter, I'm so worried when you tell me that in 2022, by this year, you are saying to me that Zambia and cabinet has got very few women.
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually not impressed, to be honest. I expected that our current president, whom I really, really like very much, I expected he would have more women in his cabinet, but no, they are not enough. I think there are more that needed to be in there. He does have some women, which is good. I mean, the Minister of Information is a woman, the Minister of Health is a woman, the Vice President is a woman, the Speaker of the National Assembly is a woman, first time ever. So those are that's some groundbreaking there. And then of course in our industry, we are very in the corporate space. I'm seeing a lot of women in the bank now, very encouraging. We have the head of Absa, she's a woman. The head of Zanaco is a woman. The head of Stanchart is it Stanchart? I've forgotten. Yeah, but there are three that I was aware of that are women. So you can see that many more women are taking up this role and going into leadership. And one area, on changing beliefs, I completely, it just occurred to me, that there's still a number of churches, and a number of us here from the church space, there's a number of churches that still hold on to that Paulinic declaration that women should not, speak over men, and they should keep quiet in church. I'm very strongly opposed to that, not in the verse that Paul speaks, but I think people miss the context. When it comes to good hermeneutics, it's very important to look at the context of why Paul said that. Why did Paul speak about covering the hair? Why did Paul speak about women being quiet? What was going on in Corinth? But unfortunately, typical of Christendom, that has been taken as a very strong doctrine. So for the longest of times, women could not minister. But thankfully, that's changing. But we still have a lot of places where they don't do it. And it's very strange because in African culture, a number of tribes are matriarchal. So I don't even know what the whole issue is. I mean, we know for a fact that the Bemba kingdom is matrilineal. We know that I need to double check with the number of other tribes, but I do know a number of them are matrilineal with a matriarchal succession line. So it's not patriarchal, it's matriarchal. So where the problem comes with women becoming leaders leaves me stumped. I think it's a case of just trying to understand. And sorry to kind of drift a bit off, but do you know that that's the reason why people like Mama Lenshina was very easily accepted amongst the Bemba speaking people, because they already had a kinship and understanding for the matrilineal kind of leadership. So when a woman like that was raised by God and became such a powerful force in the early religious movement of the 1960s. I mean, this is a woman that had over 150,000 members in her church in 1963. Unheard of in this country. That was a country of what? 2.5 million people, 3 million people. 150,000 were from her church. That was higher than any other denomination at the time, including the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Church, as well as the Scottish missionaries. So she had massive influence, and you see it's a matrilineal thing. So I feel we are being disingenuous and a bit disconnected when we come up with all this stuff about the women can't do this and the women can't do that. I think it's just a case of this amorphization I spoke about. But change is coming.
All right. Thank you so very much. We've got under 3 minutes. Whilst I will ask all of us to open our cameras. We have got less than 2.5 minutes to go. I would need 25 seconds from each of you that have been on, and I'll give a minute to our honorable speakers tonight, a minute. So it means I would have shot over with 4 minutes. So let me begin with Dr. Lembani, under 25 seconds. What are your words to the continent tonight?
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Nkoma. Well, one of the first things, that I would put across to ensure that a woman is emancipated, we need, also investment in education, in Africa. one thing we need to know is that most of these women in the leadership roles mainly are also coming from the urban areas. But let's also zero down to the rural sector. Yeah,
Thank you.
will find that there are a lot of high literacy levels there. So we need
Thank you
also
so very much for that. Thank you so very much for that. Your 25 seconds is over. Your word is investment, investment, investment. It must go to all the rural areas and everywhere in Africa. Nkele, if you are on your mic and your camera on, under 25 minutes, what would you want to say to somebody up there in Africa, to our leaders? Now we are speaking to our leaders, right there. Under 25 seconds. Go ahead.
For this 25 seconds, I will focus mostly on female leaders. That if we as female leaders empower each other, if we mentor each other, that process becomes easier and it sinks in easier, and it makes sense to us as women in lower levels, it being spiritually or in politics or in every aspect. So it actually sinks in better and quicker, and it makes more sense. We actually get to understand the purpose of each individual when we get groomed from a female level, or from a female mentor. So I
Thank
think
you so very much. Your 25 seconds is over. I want to get to Mr. Didier quickly. From the political science aspect, where are we at? You have your 25 seconds.
As I said, we still have a long way to go, but what we need now is to see the participation of women in political environment, which the number is still too low. So we need the participation of women in political environment.
Wow, thank you so very much. That was Mr. Didier from the UKZN team as well here in South Africa. We are saying we need women participation. In order for us to see things change, we need women. Dr. Herman, you are coming at the end. See, my director is commenting on the other side. Dr. Herman, thank you very much for coming. All right, but you are supposed to have been in class and teach us. All right. Yeah, thank you so very much. I've got 1 minute for Swongile and 1 minute for Reverend Water. Oh my God, their network seems to be breaking. Their network seems to be breaking.
Doctor, while we're waiting for...
yes, go ahead. Go ahead. While you're waiting, yes.
I wanted to say, achieving this gender equality, it also depends on how do we, as a man, how do we perceive women? And women have to ask themselves also, how do they perceive themselves? I think answering to these questions will give us also an aspect of the answer. How are they going to participate actively in political environments?
Participate.
Correct. Yeah, so we had given you that, and that's great. Okay, I see Reverend Water is in, and I'm not sure if it's Reverend Water who is making the internet to break or it's the wife, but I think it's the man. So, because men are the problem. Yeah, we'll start with the man. Let Reverend Water speak under a minute.
Under a minute, yes, indeed. So I think bottom line is more work is needed, more emancipation is needed, more awareness, sensitization, the work that Dr. Limbani and them are doing to see more women become empowered. And I think it lies in education. Education certainly plays a key. I speak about miseducation because I believe that if the education is wrong, it leads to a breakdown of society somewhere down the line. So the education must be right, but education, there must be. That education must be quality, it must be relevant, it must be accessible, and it must go to the women. Then it must also include an empowering education that leads to self-realization, because for me, that is very key.
Wow.
Well,
okay, so you have spoken in 45 seconds. That was good. So your wife has got at least 1 minute, 15 seconds. Madam, take your time.
Okay. Thank you. So for me, I really believe it all comes down to identity, because when you have a clear conscious of what you are, what you're capable to do, it's easy for you to align with your purpose. And that's where emancipation comes in, because if you're not sure of what role you're supposed to play in society, you don't know your identity, it's really pretty hard for you to even know what you're supposed to do. So, all in all, identity plays a very major role, and also empowering and sensitization and mentoring of women. That is really going to help, because that will help move to shift the paradigm of how women of how they've been brought up to think in a certain way. So we really need that to help the emancipation of women. Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. Thank you so very much for those encouraging words. Ladies and gentlemen, a few thoughts tonight. And for those of you that have joined us a little bit late, I want to say to us, and I want to say a few great thoughts tonight. We have spoken about investment in Africa. We know that the United Nations has got a deliberate policy to see to it that women are empowered. We have also a deliberate policy at the African Union where they are looking for women to go into engineering, women to go into these rare skills, as they are called, women to go into farming, and specifically Dr. Berlin Chitsunge, who is one of our leaders at the African Institute of Leadership and Governance. She is, in fact, the woman ambassador for food and security. When you are able to feed ourselves, we'll be able to control what comes into our mind. He who feeds you controls your mind. So we need our African men and women to realize that, so that we can be able to see more women being in the manufacturing industry, women being in the activities that they have been shunned away. Also, this particular time, allow me to say we have spoken about investment, we have spoken about empowerment, we have spoken about raising the standard. And the most important thing is that belief systems ought to change. You know, the belief systems ought to change. And this has been demonstrated by many, many, many leaders out there in our continent, where we have seen that the belief system is highly, highly, highly marginalized, where women are really sidelined. So in order for us to build a new Africa, we need the belief system to change. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to thank my leaders who have come unto us tonight. And I want to thank specifically Mr. Didier Kabwe, who is one of our political scientists, to make us understand what is happening in the continent. I want also to take this particular time to thank Dr. Dennis Lembani, who came all the way from Haifa Project and to share with us. Allow me also to thank Ms. Nkele Manyana, who is with us today, one of our guests, who has participated in the program. There are many that would come in and log out, particularly countries that we have in Africa where we know network and signal becomes a problem. So all our classes are recorded and they are sent to them so that we can share that. Allow me to thank Ms. Bongile Mwambazi, who was one of our key speakers tonight. And also, let me thank Reverend Walter Mwambazi, all the way from Zambia. Network gave them a lot of problems. It kept on bouncing out and bringing them back. But at the end of it all, allow me to say to all of you that have watched this program on Facebook, to say the African Institute of Leadership and Governance is there to help you become the leader you are designed to be. So register, enroll. We are an accredited institute. We are an institute that is highly recognized, And we are not just here to play jokes. Every discussion that is done here, we make sure that enough notes are taken and points are taken, and they end up at the Pan-African Parliament, so that our African leaders, because we are a Pan-African movement, we want our Pan-African leaders begin to take your input very serious. After we have done up to 100 of our sessions, a book will be compiled, which almost all the participants will be able to receive their dossiers and that which they brought in. Also, friends, this time, let me announce that when you see enrollments coming on, jump on. Until I come your way again, same time next week, as we look at another discussion. Let me take this time and say, may God bless Africa. Nkosi Sikeleli, Africa. Good night, bonne nuit, and au revoir. Bye.
Merci.